where my power went out because of electrical storms,
Hmm.
and I was almost sitting there thinking to myself, well, at least for 2 days, I won't get ripped off for this crazy rate increase because I had no power for a couple of days. But that no power for a couple of days in my area led to some very strange events. It was very, very hot here in Georgia. And to be honest with you, I wound up taking the family outside to sleep outside because it was cooler outside than it was inside. It was very hot in the house,
Wow.
and we went outside and slept on our front porch. And frankly, I went out there with a loaded pistol because there were people wandering around in the dark with flashlights,
Well,
and I don't know where they were going. They had carts with wheels on them, and they were walking around with carts with wheels and flashlights out there, very strangely stalking around while a good part of this city was in darkness.
a
And
full
I couldn't
blackout.
yeah, so I couldn't figure out what was going on for a while. And oh, by the way, no communication,
Mm,
everything was down.
mm.
And I was thinking to myself, that this is the kind of thing that if that emerges and happens in some areas for more than a couple of days,
Oh yeah.
hell will break loose just based on that. An excuse from a storm, a natural disaster, knocking out the power grid in an area. We are at this point where people are very desperate before the power goes out.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when the power goes out? And in some places people are sweating, or maybe later on in the winter there'll be places where people are cold.
Yeah.
um, they're going to be seeking to get warm and also get fed somehow or other. It's going to get strange, and it was very strange here for a couple of days. And I'll tell you, it was like being in another country
Wow.
for a couple of days. And I don't know exactly how to cap that story, but to tell you that it strikes me that if that happens for any lengthy period of time in any significant portion of this country,
Yeah.
you're going to see all hell break loose,
Hmm.
except it won't be live streamed because people won't be able to utilize their phones. If the power's out in an area, the cell towers are out too. People won't
Yes.
be able to use their phones or their internet to stream it out there, and it will just be something that happens in the dark, and you'll see the aftermath when they flip the switch back on.
Wow.
Those are the kind of things I'm starting to think about, because we are at a pressured situation, and
Yes.
all of this is being amped up while we're being told to get ready and root for one side or the other.
Hmm.
Get ready for the presidential selection. This is the thing that's going to decide our destiny. And I got to tell you, I sit back and I yawn and I say to myself, but here's the thing. They've told us many times over that this is important. This will change our destiny. This will change the system. And the only thing that's ever changed really is that our prices have gone up,
Yeah.
the pressure has increased, and things have declined for us just a bit one way or another. And that is the only thing that's ever actually changed. The big hope and change and whatever was supposed to come when Obama came in,
Yeah.
sure, people had their change in sentimentality, but that's the key anymore. It's sentimentality over substance.
Yes.
We all know the economy sucks. We all know the situation is harsh. We all know that there's a lot of people out there begging for a savior, and maybe some of them do think Kamala, the prosecutor, might be able to come in and do it. Maybe they think
Mm,
that. Maybe they think
mm.
that Trump is the solution. Third time's the charm for him. Maybe one way or another, the guy who ran casinos into the ground in Atlantic City might be able to run the country,
A little
away
bit.
from the ground. Maybe, I don't know. This is what they think, and I don't know what to say to anybody anymore because the whole thing just screams to me that we're going to continue on down the hill. I don't think it's going to be a massive crash. There are people that think it is an existential threat. If Kamala gets in there, it's an existential threat. If Trump gets in there, it's an existential threat. It's the only thing they got right, is that there is an existential threat. And the truth is that those that are in power, the powers that should not be,
Mm,
are still in control, no matter who you vote for, no matter who takes the presidency, no
yeah.
matter who gets the corporate position.
Mm,
Guess what? The labels will remain the same and the mechanism will remain the same. And the only question you're going to have is which part of my body is going to get squeezed harder
yeah.
over the next couple of years. That's it. And how much sicker are you going to get? How much more is your quality of life going to drop off? That is the only real question here anymore, man. So I don't know why it is people are still begging for a savior. And it wasn't going to be RFK Jr. The big tech people, you can see where they're getting together, and
Mm.
one way or another funding all of it. You can see where all the big corporations are dividing up sides and picking a horse in the race. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins the triple crown in horse racing, because the sport is going to stay the same, and the
Yes.
bet lines are going to change here and there, but they're still going to be there. And so is that whole business. And that's the key to remember here with this 2024 selection business,
Mm.
all coming to an end at the end of this year. And meanwhile, I didn't even get to talk to you yet about something I'm doing toward the end of the year, where I'm going to go to Dallas, Texas, and I'm going to be the MC for the JFK Lancer Conference, November,
Excellent.
and I'm only going there. Believe me, I don't have the money to travel to Dallas, but it is being sponsored somewhat, so I can get there. But my well being while I'm there is yet another story. But I'm going to meet and greet people, and hopefully run into people in Dallas as we continue to search for the truth about that particular actual coup d'etat that took place in this country. Because remember, they also said this was a coup recently, right?
Yep.
This whole thing with Kamala was a coup. Well, to me, what happened on November 22nd, 1963, was a real change in government, and was government by gunplay. And we did see somebody who was selected generally by the public, removed from office, again, by the power of a gun. And who wielded that gun? What is the truth behind that? We still don't have it. And it's over 60 years later.
Mm.
But at that conference, we're going to see new information. Young people will be presenting there. We got a 15-year-old presenter, a 25-year-old presenter, as well as some of the old men and myself
15,
introducing
Chuck.
people and stuff like that live. Yes. Yes, sir.
Wow. That is so inspiring to hear that he's at a level where he's not just digesting the information, but yet he can present it to a room full of adults. That's wonderful to hear. That's absolutely wonderful
Yeah.
to hear. Well,
His
what's
name, his name is Alex Harris, and he'll be there. No relation to Kamala. He'll be there. And another young man, Will O'Halloran, the 20-something-year-old guy. No, we're trying to bring younger people in because
Mm.
unfortunately this has been a generational pursuit,
Yes.
to go after all the evidence, to go after the truth regarding this. And for those that don't think it's important, let me tell you, in my estimation, and in the estimation of many other historians and people who are students, let's say, of this case, if it were not for the public execution of John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963, the Vietnam War would not have occurred as it did. That decade long, thing that was overshadowed by the much longer event that took place in Afghanistan, had a
Mm.
lower body count, but it was the longest war in U.S. history in Afghanistan. But all of those people that had to die, that had to be run through the mill, all that money made by the military industrial complex,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have happened had Kennedy not been murdered in Dallas, Texas. And we still have a lot of questions about that. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of events that take place just before one of these serious prophets that go into war, one way or another. And oh, hey, coincidentally, we have a couple of profitable things happening on the planet today, don't we? In Ukraine, and in that place they call Palestine or
Yeah.
Israel, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
There's lots of profit to go around. There's lots of war, and there's lots of blood that is turned into money for those that are the money men on the planet. And oh, by the way, there's usually political chicanery and things that are moved in place just before it. And I argue that, yes, indeed, the Kennedy assassination, John F. Kennedy's assassination, not even getting into Roberts, by the way, but Robert Senior, not Junior. Uh,
Yes.
Robert Senior's assassination as well. In furtherance of the Vietnam War, to make sure that the resistance to that or the removal of that war would not take place, to make sure that people could go ahead and Brown and Root Construction and all those other companies, very much like Halliburton later, could
Mm.
continue to profit off of warfare. So, it's very important, and what it did to us generationally, and how it robbed us of an entire generation of military men who went and, in a lot of cases served their country under the idea that they
Yeah.
were defending, guess what? The people at home,
Yeah.
under the idea that they were defending democracy, much like today, where they're fighting them over there to make sure we don't have to fight them over here.
Hmm.
The same thing goes on, and they still run them through the meat grinder. It's gotten a little more efficient because of technological advances, but
Yes.
the gain is still the same and the profit is still high. So anyway, yeah, so November 22nd to the 24th in Dallas, Texas at the Marriott. And if you check out any of my podcasts, I have a discount code. If you want to attend the conference virtually, you can do that, or you can go in person. I'll be there in person, and I would love to shake hands with people. And, hell, if you tell me that you heard me on this show or any of the shows where I was promoting this, and you come up to me in person in Dallas, I'll give you a present of some kind, something Ochelli.com stuff. I have a couple of products here and there that I have from last year, from the 10-year anniversary, decks of cards, hats, whatever. I'll give you a present if you tell me that you heard me promoting the conference on CFR. How about that? And
Excellent.
there you go. If you can make it to Dallas, Texas, November 22nd to the 24th, and if not, you can go online at assassinationconference.com. And, I'll give you those links and stuff, Noble, when we're
Yes,
done.
of
Mhm.
course, and I'll make sure I put the links all below in the description. So if anybody is taking the trip across the pond, or for the international listeners, that definitely seems like a very viable and interesting plus edutaining conference to attend, most definitely.
Yeah. And we might actually plan a trip to Dealey Plaza, like just for my listeners and friends. We might get a little group vehicle together. We're trying
Mm,
to do that. A few other things going on because we will actually be there. It's funny. It'll line up exactly with the weekend where that happened in Dallas, because Kennedy was assassinated on Friday the 22nd. And it so happens that this conference will begin on Friday the 22nd.
wow.
Uh, Obviously, it's 61 years later. The
Yes.
calendar lines up again. But
Synchronistic.
yeah, definitely. And again, if you can't make it there, there's also the online conference and even a
Mm,
special price for students, by the way. So, but a
excellent.
10% discount if you use Ochelli 10 as your code. But like I said, I'll give you all those links and stuff when we're done talking today.
Perfect,
you
perfect,
know,
perfect. What's your thoughts? Pardon, self. What are your thoughts on the idea that Mr. Bush Senior was somehow involved and was on boots on the ground at that point for the assassination?
well, unfortunately, I got to say that I would love to hang yet another crime on the Bush crime family.
Mm,
And I'd love to hang the Kennedy assassination on him or any of his relatives. It would be nice. It would be fun. The problem is that that photograph that people point to
yeah.
is not legitimate. If you track that individual, throughout various other photographs at different angles, you see he doesn't look the same at other angles. It's not George H.W. Bush,
Okay.
unfortunately. And I'll send you that picture too, because I have a comparison photo where you can see him turn to a different angle. But you can
Yes.
even look at films and find this character in motion pictures because there are various films taken in the plaza
Mm,
that day. A lot of people only think of the Zapruder film and then they want to argue about that. But there's over 30 different motion pictures that were taken mostly by amateur photographers, but a couple by news people and stuff. They're in the plaza, and frankly, you can follow various characters in different footage and see who they are a lot clearer at a lot different angles. And that particular person, sadly, and Russ Baker, not a happy guy when he met me. But sorry, Russ, it's not George H.W. Bush. Although I like Family of Secrets for almost the
yes.
rest of the book. I love that book, except for when he tries to go into H.W. Bush and the Kennedy assassination.
Mm,
He does great on W in there. He does great on the earlier connections to, trading with the enemies and all
yeah.
that stuff. Prescott, great stuff in there, all the way up to he tries to hang H.W. Bush with the Kennedy assassination. And I don't want to protect this guy. I mean, please, you're talking about a drug runner, a liar, somebody who magically becomes head of the CIA for one. When Gerald Ford, the president that wasn't elected to be president or vice president, is in control of things, he selects George H.W. Bush to be the head of the CIA so he can do damage control because there was like a whole bunch of congressional hearings looking into CIA malfeasance. For some reason, he selects H.W. Bush to be the guy to do damage control. That's Gerald Ford who did that. And you really need to look into the guy who's supposed to be a buffoon in American history, right? He's not so much a buffoon as he is a protector of the system and a snitch to the
Yes.
FBI and a servant of the system who gets rewarded. Like I said, he gets to be president without ever being elected president or vice president.
Yeah.
Uh, interesting how they got rid of Nixon and all that. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But he's the guy who puts H.W. Bush in with the CIA. I mean, you want to talk about drug running, you want to talk about S&L scandals, you want to talk
Mm.
about banking, you want to get deep into it and go into the call boy scandal
Oh
and the
gosh,
White
yes. Yeah.
House, all kinds of criminal activity from
Boys
human,
Town.
you know, from trading with the enemies through Prescott Bush all the way through to weapons of mass destruction. And of course we knew
Okay.
he had the weapons because
Yeah.
we have the receipts. It was our company that sold it.
Sold it.
Anyway, what are
Mm.
you going to do? All the way through all that, plenty of criminal activity. Unfortunately, that's one murder that is not owned by the Bush crime family. Oh, and the Clinton crime family is, by the way, just like a sub, like a subcontractor, another branch, if you will, yet another franchise that comes off of the Bush crime family is
Yeah.
family. They worked together. They were great friends. You got to know this part of it, right? And Bill
Mhm.
Clinton even reemerged recently. Did you see him at the DNC? They actually wheeled him out too.
Exactly. He looked awful, man. Well, Hillary doesn't look too bad herself. She looks very bad actually. They've aged awfully. I think
Yeah,
yeah, all of the wicked that these people are doing, it really manifests in the physical because
yeah,
they've been at it for how many years? 20, 30 odd years. They've been in this political,
right.
system, selection system, these games, politics, and the life force is just going from them because behind the scenes we have physical people running things, but then we also have a spiritual side, and the spiritual side is these wicked demons that some people may be like, what on earth is Noble talking about? But there are beings that will inhabit other beings and are slowly sucking their life force totally out of them. It's evil, it's evil and wicked, and it's as simple as, and if people do not wake up sooner rather than later and actually take their destiny into their own hands, we're going to continue to a road of destruction. I mean, it's bad now. It's very bad now. I mean, I can't imagine how someone in their 70s, 80s are looking at, if they've still got their capacities mentally, how they judge this world, how much things have changed and how wicked this place is at the moment currently. There's still beauty, don't get it twisted, guys. There's so much beauty in this world naturally, but the
Right.
system that has been manufactured and manipulated and given to us, sold to us, is horrible. It's wicked.
Well, and it's obvious, it's manifest, it's observable in that, a guy who was Slick Willie, who was playing, the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show,
Yeah.
which sadly, I have to admit that the first time I got to vote in a presidential selection, I voted for Bill Clinton. I was a young man and thought he was kind of cool when I had Bush to compare him to. He was the lesser of two evils, I thought.
Yeah.
And I see the slick guy, who looked kind of cool and seemed to be with it and all that. And he's playing the sax on Arsenio Hall. You flash forward to from the 90s to today,
Mm.
and now he's the crypt keeper coming up. And,
Yes.
he's the crypt keeper showing up on the stage at the DNC. except that his voice, he always had that hoarse voice problem
Mm,
where, he's like always, oh, I've been
yes.
campaigning harshly and I shouldn't eat McDonald's so much when I go jogging, and all that. And this used to be real film, by the way. There used to be camera crews that would follow him while he went jogging, and then they'd catch him stopping at McDonald's, for a Big Mac or whatever. But I mean, and that was kind of funny. That was cute. But now you see him and he looks like he's been drained of life.
Yeah.
He looks very much like the Crypt Keeper. The eyes are sunken in,
Mm,
and now his voice is permanently, "Hey, yes, I am Bill Clinton. I'm still here. And even though I sound and look like the Crypt Keeper, I'm
yeah.
still more with it than Joe Biden. Hello." And he gets a rousing, round of applause before the next dance break there at the
Mm,
DNC. What can I say? I mean, if you can't see what the toll is that it takes upon what is allegedly a human body, I don't know what entity runs the Clintons, but human
exactly.
body, I
Yeah.
believe, one way or another, then what can I tell you? And that very same thing has happened to all of us in one way or another. We've been drained. We've been, taken away from our humanity.
Yeah.
We've been taken away from that goodness that is there, and it's still all available in the world at any moment. By the way, an act of kindness or an act of decency,
Mm,
and an act of goodness out there, participation in opening your mind, opening other people's minds, getting them to think, engaging with others. All these things are available to you at all times.
yes.
And you can change your destiny at any moment. But the more you invest in this madness that I'm clearly making a mockery of as I go through these discussions, the more you invest in this in a serious way emotionally, the more you give yourself over, the more you give your vow to it when you give a vote, the more that you're participating in it, that you're giving it all of your energies
Mm,
and you're giving it all of your focus and you're thinking that these creatures one way or another, whether
yeah.
they're the orange man over there who's the billionaire from the real estate hustler from Queens, or you think it's the lady from California who was prosecuting the hell out of people
Yes.
and laughing, busting people for smoking weed, even though she says she was smoking weed
Yep.
in California or whatever. And by the way, I don't even care that they say, oh, well, she let out illegal immigrants and blah, blah, blah. You know what? If that is the worst thing that she did, then not as much damage as has been done to all of us over time.
Hmm.
All of it is a wreck. None of it is any good. And if this is the best we can do, and if this
Exactly.
is what's worth $500 million,
Yeah.
literally don't know what to say to people anymore.